All right, let's be real. If you've ever stared at that super dense chapter on sports physiology in your textbook and just felt your brain shut down, this is for you. We're going to break all of that down into a simple, clear guide that's not just going to help you crush your exam, but actually help you understand your own body. So let's get right into it.
You know that feeling, right? You're in the middle of a game, your heart is pounding, your lungs are on fire, your muscles are just screaming at you. Well, that's not just you being tired. That is your body's incredible internal machinery kicking into high gear. It's this whole complex dance of reactions, and we're about to unpack it, piece by piece.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at your body as a machine. Then, we'll see how that engine performs under pressure. We'll compare the energy systems for a sprint versus a marathon, cover the most common ways things can break down, and then finish up with a first aid playbook. Let's do this.
Okay, first things first, your body, the machine. Before we can even talk about boosting performance, we gotta understand the science that makes it all tick. So, what in the world is sports physiology anyway?
Think of sports physiology as the why behind every move you make. It's the science of how your body works and, this is the important part, how it responds and literally changes because of the stress of exercise. It's the reason training actually makes you faster and stronger. All right, let's pop the hood and take a look at the engine itself. The moment you start moving, your circulatory and respiratory systems, they don't just speed up, they completely transform to meet the new demand. This is where the real magic happens.
The second you start exercising, your muscles are screaming for two things: more oxygen and more fuel. Your body's response? It goes into total overdrive to deliver. This sets off a chain reaction of changes in your heart, your lungs, and your muscles, which we're about to get into right now.
Okay, this is absolutely crucial for your exam, so pay close attention. You need to know the difference between the immediate or acute effects and the long-term or chronic changes from training. So during one workout, your heart rate shoots up, right? But after months of training, your resting heart rate actually goes down. Why? Because your heart has adapted. It's become a stronger, way more efficient pump. That's physiology right there in action. And speaking of that efficient pump, here is a massive tip for your exam. If you get any question that even mentions a circulatory system, you have got to include the formula for cardiac output. It's a surefire way to show you know what you're talking about.
And here it is. Cardiac output, or CO, is just your heart rate multiplied by your stroke volume. Simple, right? It's just the number of times your heart beats per minute times the amount of blood it pushes out with every single beat. This little equation is how you measure your heart's total output. And trust me, it's a guaranteed point scorer.
Of course, the heart can't do all the work alone. It's got a crucial partner, the lungs. Your respiratory system kicks into gear, making you breathe not just faster, but deeper. This increase in what's called tidal volume, basically how much air you pull in with each breath, drags more oxygen into your blood. And over time, training can actually increase your total lung capacity. Pretty cool.
And finally, we get to the muscles themselves. Training leads to something called hypertrophy, which is just the fancy scientific term for muscle growth. But it's not just about size. It's about what kind of muscle fibers you're building. Slow twitch fibers? Those are your marathon runners, built for endurance. Fast twitch fibers are your sprinters, designed for those short, super explosive bursts of power.
You know, that difference between a marathoner and a sprinter is the perfect way to get into our next topic: the two totally different energy systems that fuel them. We're talking about aerobic versus anaerobic exercise.
Okay, the difference here is actually really simple. Aerobic literally means with oxygen. This is your body's go-to system for long, steady stuff where it's burning fats and carbs for fuel. Anaerobic means without oxygen. This is for short, intense bursts where your body uses the super quick access energy that's already stored right there in your muscles.
So, to make it super clear, think of things like jogging, cycling, or long-distance swimming. That's all aerobic. For anaerobic, think of a 100-meter sprint, heavy weightlifting, or a high jump. Just knowing these examples will help you nail any question on this topic.
So far, we've seen the body when it's working perfectly. But let's be honest, sports aren't always perfect. When we push our limits, sometimes things break down. So now we're going to switch gears and focus on understanding and identifying common sports injuries.
First up, the sprain. The key word you have to burn into your brain here is ligament. A sprain is an injury to that tough, rope-like tissue that connects one bone to another bone at a joint. Think about rolling your ankle. That's a classic sprain. Now, whatever you do, don't confuse a sprain with a strain. A strain is an injury to a muscle or a tendon, and tendons are what connect your muscles to your bones. Here's a little trick to remember it. The T in strain is for tendon. Simple as that.
Okay, besides sprains and strains, you'll want to know these other guys too. A contusion? That's just the fancy medical term for a bruise. A fracture is a break in the bone itself, and a dislocation is when a bone gets knocked completely out of its normal spot in a joint.
Knowing what the injury is step one, but step two is knowing exactly what to do about it, right away. And that brings us to our final and maybe most practical section, your first aid playbook. And here it is, probably the most important acronym in all of sports first aid, RICE. It stands for rest, to stop any more damage; ice, to shrink the blood vessels and reduce swelling; compression, with a bandage, to provide support; and elevation, to use gravity to help drain away fluid. This is your immediate action plan. And seriously, this could be a 5-mark question on your exam, so lock it in. Look, RICE is absolutely vital for treatment, but you know what's even better? Not getting injured in the first place. A proper warm-up, using the correct technique, having the right gear, eating well, and getting enough rest. These are not just nice suggestions. They are the pillars that will keep you healthy and in the game. So there you have it, the science of how your body performs and the playbook for what to do when it breaks down. You now have the knowledge you need for your exam, but more importantly, for your own health and your own training. The only question left is, how are you going to use it to train smarter?